Right, time to share my first ride impressions and observations on the brand new 2022 Cannondale Synapse. It launched just over 2 weeks ago and the reaction to the bike has been quite interesting. Very divided around the key technology rollout on this bike, the SmartSense lights and radar baked into the frame in a way we haven't seen before. I've been riding the bike loads for the last 2 weeks, during the daytime and at night to see where it actually works and to find out if it's a hit or a miss. But before all of that, let's talk about how the bike rides. So performance, handling and comfort. Is it as good as the old bike or better? And how does it compare to other rivals in this very popular endurance road bike category? So loads to cover, let's not dilly-dally, let's dive in. I'm going to start by praising the old bike because if you don't know, I really like the old Synapse. One of my favourite endurance bikes. It's fast and comfy and right at home in a road race, yes, really. A 300km Audax, some Belgian Pavé, it could do it all. Wide tyres, disc brakes, relaxed geometry, which suits an aging chap like me. So this new bike has some big shoes to fill, and has it filled them? Oh yes it has. Oh my goodness me, this bike is just phenomenal. What a package. It's even faster, even more exciting, even more dynamic to ride, yet it's still just as comfy as the old bike with the same relaxed geometry. Gives you a higher position than a race bike and is really sure-footed and planted in high-speed situations. My very first impression on this bike, literally on the first few miles of riding it the other day, was how much it felt more like a race bike than the old bike. Much sharper, more focused, more dynamic, more exciting to ride. But with that same sure-footed, steady geometry, so a higher stack than a race bike, a bit shorter, so you're not totally cramped over the handlebars like you would be in a race bike. But you get the drops, it's still very aggressive and still very aero. So much racier bike, but then the comfort is still on a par with the old bike. I can't really tell, if I'm honest, if it's any smoother than the old bike. Too many differences in specification. I would need both bikes side by side to really get under the skin of whether this bike is actually much smoother. 8% is what they're claiming. I mean, that's a small amount to really detect through your bottom. It's dealing with my local rough roads very well. The big tyres, 30mm on this bike, are ironing out the high frequency vibrations, while the frame is dealing with the bigger impacts very well. So it is a nicely cushioned bike without feeling too soft. I think the old bike, now thinking back, definitely had a softer edge than this new bike. Talking about comfort when compared to some rivals in this category, I don't think the front end smoothness is quite on the same level as the very excellent Specialized Roubaix with the Future Shock spring, while seated comfort isn't quite as good as the Trek Mani SLR with its ISOSpeed decoupler. It's not far behind the two bikes though, very close, but what it does offer is a nice balanced composure. It does iron out rough roads well enough for a bike like this to give you the comfort you want on a longer ride. There's space for wide tyres as well, so you can go to a faster tyre, even low pressures, and that's something I might try if I get the chance. Got the 30mm tyres, as mentioned already on this bike, and nice low pressures, so like 50, 55 psi. They moved it much closer to a race bike in my experience, and brought in some of that excellent Super 6 Evo and System 6 design into the bike, and my goodness, does it show out here. You can absolutely bash on the road, 35, 40k an hour with no trouble at all, even with me on it and my out of fitness legs turning the cranks. This bike is jolly fast. So it's clear the new bike rides very well, and it's a worthy follow-up to the previous model and a good rival to other contenders in this endurance bike category. And if that was it, we could end the video now by saying it's one of the best bikes of the year. Rush out and buy it. But it's not as simple as that, because Cannondale, rather than just update the frame, added a new technology, innovated in the way they like to do, and that innovation has caused a lot of debate, with over 500 comments on my first look video, mostly negative towards the rollout of the new technology. So as a quick reminder of SmartSense, we have front and rear lights and a radar fixed permanently to the bike, you can't remove it, powered by a single battery down here on a down tube, and all connected to a sensor on a front hub, which you pair with the smartphone app, customize settings, check the battery runtime, all that sort of stuff, but you don't have to. Just put your Wahoo Garmin computer on the front, connect it to that, and off you go. As clever as that integration of lights and radar is on the bike, it does present a few problems that many of you point out in the comments on the first look video of this bike. The first one is, namely, where the hell do you fit your saddlebag? The light and radar is underneath the saddle in a way that makes fitting a saddlebag like this one here almost impossible. I've tried, I've not managed it. There are, however, other solutions, so I've been that away. The first is a tool keg to go in the bottle cage, mount on a down tube, so that's one option. The other is a top tube bag to go on the top tube with those 2 bolts. But that's fine for a gravel bike, but on an endurance road bike, I don't think so. Which leaves me with that, or my jersey pockets. I lobbed that saddlebag a bit too keenly, and now I can't find it in the hedgerow at all. It must have gone over. So that's one saddlebag down, so I definitely can't use a saddlebag on the new bike. Yeah, that didn't go to plan at all. Okay, let's dive into SmartSense in a bit more detail and my thoughts on how different parts of this technology impact the ride quality of the new Synapse, and we'll start with the radar. So this is using the Garmin Varia radar, which has been around for quite a few years now. It's well established and it has lots of fans, but clearly from the comments on the first look of the bike, lots of people don't really like the idea of it, but it has its supporters. And it does work really well. In my experience, it gives you much earlier warning than your sensors alone will give you when a car is approaching. And where I find that really useful is either riding on my own or I'm deep in thought on a narrow country lane like this, or riding with a buddy and you're deep in conversation talking about how amazing Tom Pidcock is, and you don't hear a car because you're chatting away. You get a early warning on your computer that a car is approaching, and you use that data, that information, to go down to a single file on a narrow road or act accordingly as you want. And it prevents a car from creeping up on you, which can happen when you are deep in conversation or deep in thought. And it works really simply by connecting to a computer like this Wahoo Element Bolt, and you have a small column down the side, and that shows a car approaching and how many cars and how fast they're approaching as well. You can have it beeping, which gets really annoying after a while, so I turn it off, but the Wahoo has LEDs on the top. So when I'm riding along, looking ahead, I catch a flash of LED below me, and that's my early warning that a car is approaching. And it is really nice to have that early warning that a car is approaching by having the computer tell you when a car is approaching. And then we have lights, front and rear. And the rear light is baked into the same unit as the radar, so small and compact and attached really firmly to the saddle. And then up here we have a Design front light fixed underneath the computer mount and delivering a maximum 350 lumens of output. And the lights for daytime use work without fault. I had no complaints about them as daytime running lights at all. However, the good news stops there, and for me the bad news is that, personally speaking, that front light isn't as bright as it needs to be for riding on dark country lanes. And here's some footage from riding on a dark country lane the other night, and as you can see, hopefully, the light lacks the punch, the brightness and the reach to allow you to ride at a decent speed on these roads and see hazards like potholes and drains and really see where you're going in a way you can with a much brighter light. 1,000 lumens or 2,000 lumens, up to 4,000 lumens if you want it. There's no shortage of brightness in the light market if you want it. And while at low speeds there is enough brightness, for high speed stuff, the 350 lumen output just isn't where it needs to be. I am genuinely impressed with how SmartSense works. It's easy, intuitive, and it does what the company says it aims to deliver. And having one single battery to both charge and power the 3 devices makes life much easier. Got a USB-C port there and a remaining battery indicator light there. So very simple. However, the downside is, for obvious reasons, you've got one quite small battery powering 3 devices. So you're compromising runtime and that front light brightness. Now, for comparison, a normal front light I use at night time on a road bike is the same size as the battery itself. This is a 4,000 lumen light, way too bright for on-road, but good for off-road. But you run it at half that or even a third of that to get way more brightness and much better runtime. So that's a real comparison of the compromise of the SmartSense technology. Unless you run a second battery or a bigger battery to really boost the front light's brightness, you are running a light that isn't as bright as you can buy aftermarket like this one here. So it really is a toss-up between the convenience of a single battery but reduced runtime and brightness versus the aftermarket solution of choosing your own lights and radar systems with better runtime and better brightness, but you don't have that seamless approach you get with SmartSense. And it's worth adding, this is Mark 1, the first generation of SmartSense, and I fully see this developing and evolving over the years for better batteries, bigger batteries, brighter lights. So I think the idea here is sound, but the execution of runtime and brightness needs work to recompete with the current aftermarket solutions available. I think the real heart of the issue that many people clearly had with SmartSense when it was launched 2 weeks ago is that you're being forced into it. There's no choice. They take the choice away from you. If you want lights and radar on your bike, that's fine. But you might already have that at home on your own bike, or you might not want lights and radar on your road bike at all. This bike though has left me in a bit of a pickle because I really feel like Cannondale has given with one hand but then taken away with the other. Now with the frame itself, we've got a fantastic performance, great handling, comfort and speed. And I love the fact they're giving us a threaded bottom bracket, a regular seat post, semi-internal cable routing, wide tyre clearance and a modern looking bike. And I do like this grey colour as well. So that I can get on board with. Happy days. But they're giving us a technology that you can't remove from the bike. You're forced into buying it. So you have to buy into technology as being a key feature of the bike. Otherwise, there's no other option. You can buy a cheap model without it, but this, a range top model, comes with all the whiz-bang technology baked into it. You can't remove the battery, well you can, but you're left with a port. And I guess you could strip the rear lights and the radar technology off, but you're buying a £9,000 bike and then taking some of it away. Right, let's talk about price and value for money. And this bike here is a range top model and costs £9,000, which yes, is a lot of money, but for comparison's sake, a similar spec Trek Demani SLR will cost you £11,000 for a similar spec bike. And this bike is giving you radar and lights built into it as well. So it actually looks like pretty good value for money at this end of the range. There is a full range of bikes, all using the same carbon frame, but different levels of SmartSense technology. And it is shocking, I have to admit, that a Shimano 105 equipped bike now costs you over £3,000. How times have changed. But hopefully, Cannondale will bring out an aluminium version of the Synapse in the future with the same technology to bring the price down to a lower point to make it more accessible for more people. This bike though, if you can afford it, it's decked out with all the best kit that works superbly well. Nothing will change apart from one thing, which we'll talk about in a moment. Firstly, we have the brand new Shimano Durace Di2 12-speed semi-wire group set, and it works like a charm. Super fast shifting, much quicker than the old bike. And I love the ergonomics of the hoods, much better than the old ones in my opinion. And you can see my more detailed report on this new group set by checking the video link down below. Then we have the company's own hologram Knot 45 wheels, and they're shod with 30mm wide Vittoria Corsa tyres. Nice wide, broad carbon rims, tubeless compatible, nice and stable in crosswinds, internal spoke nipples for extra aero, nice smooth running hubs, and the tyres are fast rolling and grippy in all conditions. The only thing I would change is ditching the inner tubes for tubeless for the peace of mind I like at the time of year. And then we have a Physique Argo saddle, and I love the shape of this, really comfy on long rides, gives me all the comfort I need when doing 3 or 4 hour rides. I like the fact you have a 2-piece aero handlebar and stem. I like the shape of the tops and the drops, and the bar tape is really comfy as well, especially riding without gloves when it's warm enough, which it is at the moment. Crazy climate change to thank for that. And on this bike, to use the SmartSense and particularly the radar, you use your own computer, either Garmin or Wahoo, which most are compatible now with the Garmin Vario radar. Lower models use a device on the handlebars that doesn't have a computer, gives you a simple readout of a car approaching. So different levels of technology based on your experience. But most people buying a bike of this price range probably have their own computer, their own preference for a computer. So at least they haven't given you a computer as standard with a bike, but maybe they could in the future. Develop your own or partner with Garmin or Wahoo or another brand to give you a built-in computer. But is that a move too far? Probably. We have been there before with other bikes given smart capabilities of bikes. So at least you have your own computer to fit to the bike. Okay, time to sum up all my thoughts and observations of riding this new bike for the last 2 weeks into one concise, succinct verdict for you to take away today. Only it's not so easy, and there is a tale of two halves. On the plus side, I love the performance of the new frame. The handling, the comfort, the speed, much faster than the old bike, much more engaging, much more dynamic to ride, and we have some nice details like an external threaded bottom bracket, a regular seat post, and semi-internal cable routing, so those are all a win. But on the downside, we have a technology that you can't remove from the bike, and that wouldn't be a problem if the technology worked extremely well and worked as good as aftermarket solution. But unfortunately, the front light isn't as bright as an aftermarket light, and the runtime isn't as good, and you can't remove it for summer riding when you don't want lights or radar. And that choice being taken away is something that is hard to get your head around. Now, if you love the idea of lights on your bike all the time and a radar, then it won't be a problem. I think the technology works really well, but I do think it needs a bit more evolution, a bit more development to really meet my requirements and lots of your requirements watching this video. So on one hand it's a hit, on the other hand it's a miss, and it does make it a difficult bike to recommend. But if you love the idea of lights and radar built into the bike and you're not bothered that you can't remove them, then it will be for you. Only you can decide. So let me know what you think by leaving a comment down below. Is it a hit or a miss? Love to hear your thoughts on this very divisive new bike. Anyway, if you want to see some more of the best endurance road bikes currently available, then check on this video up here, and don't forget to subscribe by hitting the button down here. Right, that's all for now. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you all again very soon.